When you talk Michigan expectations, you have to start on the defensive side of the ball, of course. And you have to start with Isaiah Hull of Locked On Wolverines because nobody knows Michigan better, of course, here on the show. So I look at this Michigan defense from afar, Isaiah, and I just kind of wonder, like, they have to be good. The coaching staff is clearly too competent on that side for this to just, completely fall apart USC style with Alex Grinch. But when you lose Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, Josiah Stewart, and Will Johnson, I just kind of wonder. Should I be wondering? Should I have concerns? Where are we at?
It's actually kind of funny. I was on a podcast with a local Michigan guy earlier today, and I was just saying like how if you aren't paying super close attention to Michigan specifically, that's going to be your takeaway, right? Because you're going to look at it and you're going to be like, man, they just lost, two guys that were in the first round, and then another one in the second, another one in the third, and the guy that went in the second should have been in the first if it wasn't for a knee injury. And you'd be right to sit there and look at it and say like that's going to spell doom for most teams. It would, but Michigan's got so much depth, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, that it's one of those things where it's like if you watch that ReliaQuest Bowl against Alabama, and Alabama, they didn't sit their starters. Right, there were some players that didn't play because they were transferring out and whatever, but they were like, we want to win this game. Even though some of us are going to go to the NFL, we're going to play in this game. We're not opting out. Like if, you would look at it being the ReliaQuest Bowl, you'd say they're probably going to opt out. Michigan, on the other hand, they had all their guys opt out on both sides of the ball. But defensively, you saw mostly the defense that you're going to see this year because you had Rayshon Benny, who was considered to be like that third rotational guy. PFF just put out something saying he was the second best returner in as far as defensive tackle in all of college football. They got in those two transfers, Trey Williams from Clemson and Damon Payne, the former 5-star from Alabama. So they got those guys, and then Trey Pierce, who started in the bowl game, and then two other guys who were rotational players all year that played quite a bit in Eno Etta and Ika Wana. So you've got those guys. Derek Green returns as edge rusher, and TJ Guy, who started some games when there were some injuries. He had 5.5 sacks last year. That's what they've got as far as that front. Michigan believes that they have maybe with the best front seven, because if you start going even a little bit deeper and you start looking at both starting linebackers are back. They've got a third linebacker in Jimmy Rolder, who is a senior but has still been a rotational player because of all the depth that he's had ahead of him. They look at him and say that's a third starter, and they've got all these different packages. You bring back the entire coaching staff. It's the first time really that the defense has seen that happen in the last, I'd like 7-8 years, where not only do they have the same coordinator, but they also have all the same position coaches. Safety's an equally deep position group. The only place where it's kind of a little bit scary is losing Will Johnson, even though they didn't play with him for half the year because he was injured all year. They don't necessarily have obvious answers at cornerback. Jair Hill and Zeke Berry both started games. It didn't really seem like you saw both of them at the same time, except in the bowl game. I don't know that they have like a true bona fide number one guy as far as that's concerned. And nickel is a very important position for Michigan as well. So what do they have there? They feel like they've got a bunch of guys rotating. I don't know that they feel like they have someone that's absolutely going to lock that position down. But so they've got players on the defensive side, and they've got a ton of depth. I mean, I look at that front seven, and I kind of tend to agree. I don't see many defenses across the country that have this much depth, even at positions where Michigan lost talent to the NFL. It just feels like they've really got that kind of honed in to be that next man up thing. It's a little bit different when you start looking on the offensive side, of course, but defensively, it feels like they've got just as much talent as they have. Now, Wink Martindale, I'll close with this as far as the defense. He's kind of said that he doesn't necessarily feel like they have those first round type of guys like they've had in the last couple of years. But he said he feels like they've got day two guys all the way from front to back. So that's a little bit different because they don't necessarily have the two men that they had up in the middle. They don't have those guys. But as we kind of saw going from 2021 to 2022, losing Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo, people thought that the defense was going to take a step back. And it actually got better because they just had more players who were just able to at least go in and do their job, understand the scheme, understand what their coaches wanted from them. And we're just grizzled vets. And I think that's going to play really well for them.
I like the coaching staff continuity because that's a rarity in today's college football world. I have long time on this show, Isaiah, been singing the praises of teams that keep their coaching staffs mostly intact. It's one of the reasons I like Clemson a lot this year. They bring in a good defensive coordinator, I think, in Tom Allen, but the head coach, quarterback, offensive coordinator combo for a third straight season, that's just a really rare thing in the sport. Now, that can apply to the defensive side of the ball as well. But the question that I wonder about with regards to Michigan's success this year is you have a question mark at the quarterback position, but last year you ran the ball a lot and you ran it some more because you couldn't throw it. Certainly, I would hope for Michigan's sake that you could throw it a little bit better than they did last year. One would think, one would hope. But with those guys and that talent transfer you talked about, going from having day one guys to a bunch of day two, day three players, I still think they're going to be a good defense. My question is, based on one game against Alabama, who got held to 3 points by Oklahoma, who admittedly was a good defensive team, is this defense as good as last year, or are they going to be 90% of what they were last year, which is still a top 10, 15 unit in college football?
I think that's what we're going to find out, but the schedule's not nearly as hard for Michigan this year as it was last year. So that's a little bit of a change, right? I kind of come at the people that just automatically write Michigan off by just saying like, well, they were 8-4 last year and they're just going to be the same again this year. I don't necessarily, or 7-5, whatever they were in the regular season, 8-5 on the year. A lot of people just want to, look at what were they last year? Do I feel like they got better? Well, they lost some talent. Well, I'm just going to keep the number the same or drop one. The schedule, like last year, they played 4 teams that were in the college football playoff, 4. And they beat one, Ohio State. And then obviously they played an Alabama team that many thought should have been in, or at least Alabama was telling everybody that they belonged in. So you can make.
I didn't think that, but some other people did think that.
So you have that, but you look this year, the only team that was in the college football playoff last year. Now I know that's last year, right? Like anyone on this schedule could be in. For all we know, New Mexico, who lost all of its coaches and all of its players, could shock the world and be a college football playoff team. That is not going to happen, but it could. But as far as teams that last year were in the college football playoff, Michigan plays one, and that's Ohio State. And that's the team that they've beaten the last 4 years. That's the one team that's a playoff team. Otherwise, the schedule, it's easier in some ways and more difficult in others because they go on the road every other game. So I don't know for sure, right? Like I look at what they have, right? Like they're still 4 stars across the board. They're experienced players, right? Like this is the 29th most returning production in college football, according to Bill Connolly, right? That counts for something too. So, but the thing is when they go on the road, are they going to be able to still be able to do what they do, right? Michigan had kind of been in the early part of the Jim Harbaugh era, a Jekyll and Hyde team. You play them at home, chances are, unless you were Michigan State or Ohio State, you were going to lose. But then you went on the road. If Michigan went on the road, then it was a completely different story. We don't know yet about Sherrone Moore and his Michigan team. So they don't play many.
They had a pretty good road win last year.
But it was one, right? Like they went on the road to Illinois and Washington.
That's
and
true.
They lost those games. And those were games that they really, even with all the deficiencies, should not have lost. They kind of played some stupid games and won some stupid prizes with their quarterback carousel that they were trying to figure things out. So yeah, they had the best win in all of college football last year, ultimately by being the only team to beat the national champion and not subsequently lose to them. And I'm not making an offense to your Oregon guys there, but.
Don't worry. Don't worry. The pain went right through my body anyway, but we're getting over it.
But like they had what ultimately ended up being the best win on the road. So that does tell you that they can potentially travel, but each year's new, so it's kind of hard to tell. I'm looking at the offenses that they play. They don't play in Oregon. They don't play in Indiana this year. So they don't even play
Illinois.
No. And Illinois, it might be that sneaky kind of don't really want to play them type of team, right? Like I said, experience matters. They've got the 5th most returning talent, and they return like pretty much everybody on the coaching staff, and they're gonna have a quarterback. That's a scary team to play. But I think that when you look and you're like, okay, if they can get past, and they might not even get past Oklahoma and Nebraska and USC. If they win one or two of those games, considering the rest of the teams that they face, I mean, they still could be like, they could lose against Oklahoma and Nebraska, beat USC, and still end up being 10-2 this year. Because they don't necessarily face a lot of offenses that are going to really scare this defense in a lot of ways. So it's really hard to tell.
I'll get you out of here on this, Isaiah. Yes or no, Bryce Underwood will start week 1 and 2 for the Wolverines when they go to Norman?
I'm going to go yes. I think it would have been different if Mikey Keene had not been injured in spring. But you get a guy of Bryce Underwood's talent, keeping in mind he was around for bowl prep, right? This isn't a situation where he's a true freshman who came in at 0 hour and said like, okay, I got to figure out where my classes are, where practice is, and then suit up for a game here in a couple weeks. He's been around for a while. He had 10 practices during bowl prep, all 15 in spring ball, and then he'll have all 15 in fall camp. This is a guy who's going to have 35 or 40-ish practices under his belt. Mikey Keene will have maybe 15 by the time that he's all, ready and good to go. Might have the experience edge.
Good backup.
Talent. Yeah, great backup. And he wants to be a coach. So he clearly came to Michigan knowing I might be holding a clipboard for a while. And I think Michigan's intent was to Kelly Bryant, Trevor Lawrence the situation and be like, all right, we're going to give him a couple games. He can feel good. Yeah, I came out there wearing the Michigan helmet and did my thing, and then we'll give him a clipboard after week 4. I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be Bryce Underwood straight away.